I'm shortly going to give you my own views on why soldiers fight and the values and standards in 21st century warfare, but I know you'd be disappointed if the Army Sergeant Major didn't first of all talk about dress. So have a little look at Eisenhower in the middle of that picture, immaculate in his battle dress, looking good, and then look at our guy. So Field Marshal Montgomery in a pair of tank driver's trousers, an RAF flying coat, a paisley scarf, a fishing jumper and 2 cap badges. What hope did we ever have of getting the British Army dressed correctly? The following is an extract from a Fleet Street newspaper published at the end of the First World War. 2nd Battalion Coldstream Guards, which left Windsor on August the 12th, 1914, returned to the Royal Borough yesterday from Cologne and were given an enthusiastic reception. As the train steamed into the station at 12:30, loud cheers were raised. From a battalion of 1,007 soldiers and 30 officers that left to fight in the war, not a single officer and only 20 men of the original battalion that had left Windsor in 1914 returned. The battalion was paraded in the station yard with its colours. The band of the regiment played "See the Conquering Hero Comes" as they marched through Windsor High Street to return to Victoria Barracks. 72 years later, on New Year's Eve in 1990, I picked up my Bergen, my belt kit and my weapon and jumped on a coach at Oxford Barracks in Münster, Germany, and went to war in the Middle East. I was 18 years old. I had been in the battalion for 18 months and had no true sense of what I was embarking on, where I was going, how I was going to get there, and what exactly I was going to do other than to fight the Iraqi forces. I don't think I even knew who my commanding officer was, let alone the fact that General Rupert Smith was my divisional commander. We had trained for war, but not for long. Time wasn't on our side, and our platoon grew unrecognisably with many new faces and personalities. As a young 18-year-old, I didn't care about much as I prepared to embark on my new life adventure. But I did care about my platoon, my company, and my regiment. And above all, the one thing I really cared for was my section, a section that I could still name today and one that I will never forget. My section, I did have hair once, only a little bit. My section were my family. I was the youngest, the cheekiest, and the least experienced. From the outset, there was a sense of loyalty amongst us. We stuck together in everything we did, and we had a mutual respect for one another, despite the fact I was still the junior bod and still got all the shite jobs. We dug together, we ate together, we laughed at each other, we laughed with each other, and we loved our simple existence. We knew at some stage that potentially we could be in lethal combat with enemy forces, and we knew there was a very high chance that some of us, if not all, may never come back. It was a feeling I have never actually felt again since, even when deploying to Northern Ireland, Iraq or Afghanistan. Those theatres of operations were different experiences for me, perhaps because of my personal circumstances or the scale of the deployment in 1990. But my first experience was one of going to war, and I had never had that feeling before. It was Napoleon that once said there are 2 levers that motivate the soldier, interest and fear. I have to say that on this occasion, it was both. On our first major engagement, the Warrior fighting vehicles we had been sat in for 5 hours were moving onto the enemy position at considerable speed. We could hear the tanks ahead engaging targets. The noise of the engagement was amazing and made me feel kind of safe, hoping that they had done much damage before our turn came. The vehicle commander started the countdown for us to debus. This was it. You know when the countdown starts, there will be no turning back. I remember the door of the Warrior being partly opened. The sand from the desert blew in and stuck to the cam cream on my face and my rifle. Through the gap, I could see the rest of my platoon's vehicles thundering across the desert, engulfed in clouds of sand and dust, glimmering under a loom and reflections of fire. I was staring at the bayonet on the end of my rifle and focused through it to catch the eyes of my mate, Billy Wyatt, who sat opposite. I was scared but excited, and I felt an overwhelming sense of physical and moral courage overcome me. Nothing would stop me getting out of that vehicle. I was selflessly committed to leading my friends into harm's way. It was my duty. I knew that I could get killed as soon as I got out of that vehicle, but I didn't care. The chain gun was engaging targets, and then the cannon fired. The vehicle commander was shouting, 100 metres, 40, 30, 20. The vehicle came to a halt, braking so hard we were all forced to the front end of the Warrior. Now was the time. The chain gun was firing us in. It was dark, noisy and hot. I did everything I had been taught. I debussed, took up my position, got on my belt buckle and started engaging foxholes in front of me, knowing that my section, my friends, were to the left and right of me. Fast forward 22 years to May 2012 and picture us now in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. I was the Regimental Sergeant Major of the 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards, and our battalion was on its 3rd Afghan tour. Battle Group TAC was deployed at one of the outposts with a rifle company. They were deployed in a particularly dangerous area in the Garesh Valley between Kakaran and Adinzai, places that will be familiar to many in the audience. It was a significant patrol. Significant because I would always remind myself of what I had in common with the young soldiers who were on the ground that day. On this particular patrol, there was a keen, brave and utterly professional young soldier. It was clear that he loved his call sign and his mates. He was to lead the patrol and control the Valen, a device to detect improvised explosive devices. He knew what danger he was putting himself in, arguably more than anyone else in the patrol. He was the lead man and he had the responsibility of clearing the patrol route. He didn't just clear that route now and again, but he cleared it every single day, sometimes 3 times a day. Not for a week, not for a month, but for 6 months. Every day for that 6 months, he would lead his mates to safety, crossing known IED belts. But if that wasn't enough, he also fought the Taliban at close quarters, administered life-saving first aid to some of the most horrific injuries he would ever see, and he lost some of his friends. He would do things that others from across society would simply not be prepared to do. During that tour, he saw things that others would hopefully never see. He saved his friends' lives through courage, bravery, and loyalty. He was disciplined to the utmost degree. There was no room for error. His call sign respected and trusted him with their lives. He was their brother and would protect them in every way that he could. He was selflessly committed to ensuring that every single day he would serve those around him. Why did this young soldier do all of this? And why did I do the same 22 years earlier and continuously through a 30-year career? Why did many of you in this room do the same in Northern Ireland, Iraq and Afghanistan? Why did the generations before us do the same at Agincourt, Waterloo, 2 world wars and the Falklands? What made soldiers keep going over the top in the trenches or through the gates for another patrol in Crossmaglen Town Centre or Sangin, DC? Why do we volunteer to be soldiers? And why will we do what others are not prepared to do, to fight? You may or may not have noticed that during the last 8 minutes, I have purposely mentioned 6 qualities. Courage, discipline, respect for others, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. Unsurprisingly, they are the values of the British Army today and have been since 2000. These, combined with our standards of appropriate, lawful, and professional behaviour, make us what we are. They are what we aspire to live and breathe every single day. Yes, historically, there have been cases of failure which, combined with poor leadership, have resulted in avoidable consequences. The values and standards of the British Army are in the back of every soldier's mind. We know them like we know the alphabet because they are already inside us. We know we should, as General Patrick Marriott once said, do as we ought and not as we want. I would argue that our values and standards have been consistent throughout recent history. It is just that the Army decided to formally capture them in 2000 and turn them into what they are today. Soldiers have displayed them on the battlefield through some of the most testing events a human being can endure. They will continue to display them for decades to come, and despite societal changes or what older generations' perceptions of the younger generations, soldiers, be they man or woman, black or white, gay or straight, Christian or Muslim, will continue to do so. There may, of course, be other reasons that soldiers fight: pride, family, company, regiment, queen, country, for brotherhood, camaraderie, dependency, friendship, or even for a flag or a medal. But I would argue that when it comes to it, when you have crossed that line of departure, when there is no turning back and there is little time to think of anything else, soldiers will always fight for one thing and one thing only, and that is each other. Thank you.